Awesome. You can grab your earphones, Matthew.
Right, 1 second.
Yeah, that's true.
We're 5 minutes early as well.
That's okay.
Nice.
So we'll just wait for 2-3 more minutes and then we can start.
Got it.
Awesome.
Great.
Ah,
I don't know. Does it pick up this microphone?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
But is it here or here? Is it?
Closer, yeah, closer to you.
Okay, so I just wondered if it was coming from that or the. Okay, I'll do this. Okay. Mic check 1, 2 million. Dapper Dan and the place to be. Okay, it's working.
This.
I have my
Black
own.
magic.
I have my own sea salt from Siwa, so that to just like
Nice.
grab more energy of.
Nice.
Yeah. You can clearly see my nuts. There you go.
We've seen them. This is the second time of FYI.
Couldn't give a fork. Sorry. I'm in a sticky situation.
Yeah, we can see that. So like 2-3 more minutes, Maya. What do you think, Maya? You're the
Yes.
most.
Let's
Alright.
wait for our last participant to join
Okay.
in the next 4 minutes and we can get started.
Yeah.
Nahla, do you have something to drink next to you? All the talking might make you thirsty.
No, I didn't bring something to drink.
Now's your
Yeah,
chance.
you still have time. Yeah.
Okay, let me go grab something. Just a second.
Awesome.
Yeah, asthma.
Yeah, Matthew. It's interesting, you know, it's interesting to reflect humans with different states of mind.
Yes.
Insane. I hear
I
you.
mean, that's the
No,
thing though
insane, I swear to God.
with the whole
I was just
COVID-19.
complaining. Yeah, go ahead. I was just complaining to Maya yesterday that I either can have like silly nonsense conversations or weighty conversations. I can't just, you know, have the casual conversations that people have nowadays.
Yeah.
No. It's got to be serious.
You're sane, I'm insane.
I was saying that's a perfect representation of what's happening right now because I feel like everyone's going through waves. Like you're either in a really good mood where you've accepted what's
Yes.
happening around you or you're really, really down. And because of all of this technology and like the barriers between us, we don't know what the other person is feeling. So you could be in a good mood checking in with someone who's recently started feeling anxious
Yes.
about things or vice versa. So it's really tricky.
Yeah, and this is why I wanted your other friend to join because, you know, it's a reflection of what's happening outside. We're not just trying to make things look nicer or more interesting. We're just reflecting. But it's okay, you know, it's his choice, so I understand.
I feel really, really lucky. I mean, there's a dangerous situation going on with people that didn't really sign up to. It's like there's an invisible war, if you like, and the people who are helping solve it, the people who work in healthcare, are putting themselves in harm's way, and we're being asked to stay at home. I'm like, what a luxury that our way of helping is to literally do nothing I'm like, and to do that means that we're actually doing our bit. Like, how lucky are we that we don't have to continue our job? And if we did, we'd be at risk if we did, and we put other people at risk. Like, we're in a very fortunate position, and we've got the technology to stay at home. We've got food, we've got friends we can talk to, and we're connected. If we did this without knowing when it might end, without the ability to talk to people, and like you guys and my friend's mum calling, this is amazing.
True.
I've been looked out.
True. There's this meme that a couple of days ago I read, like, if this happened in 2004, we would not be able to see each other over camera. We would not be able to play games, anything. Even Netflix wouldn't have been there. So you
the chill
know
aspect
what we'd be
was.
doing. Yeah.
Very true. There's this other one saying like, oh, your grandparents went to war and you're just being asked to sit on a couch and do nothing. You can do this.
Yeah.
I saw one that said, 2019, if you did this, you were lazy. 2020, if you do this, you're a hero. Same picture, same person.
But you know, like nowadays, it is a bit of torture to be here and do nothing, because we've become the type of people who only equate their worth by how much.
You get that?
Yeah, that's the warning for
Stay the
our
fuck at home.
curfew.
Stay the fuck at home. Yeah. It's like the bell being rung by your mum. Get the fuck inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I believe.
I think we can get started. Yeah, carry on,
Okay.
please. Yeah. No.
No. I was just gonna say a quick thing that maybe before they used to do physical effort. Now it's all you home doing mental effort. So I believe it's the same, but in a different perspective. Like, everything is mental now. So you being here and present is exactly the same challenge as you being in front of a bomb or taking a bullet in the chest back then.
yeah.
Emmanuel,
Yeah.
yes, join
The struggle is real watching Netflix. You don't know my pain, millennials. I got to watch Netflix all day.
Yeah.
Hello, Emmanuel, can you hear us? Hello.
I think he's probably still connecting his camera and audio.
Hello. Let me just check. If he texted me or something. Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear us? Yeah, you look great.
Hello.
Hello.
Apologies.
Great.
Couple of news
Hey.
here. Shaved my head. I had an accident in the garden, and then
Oh,
put some
no.
glasses on just for a show.
Okay.
Oh my God. How are you feeling now?
I discovered that I have a brain, so that's good.
Interesting. So, yeah, I think now we can get started.
Yes.
This is the first time we're doing Zaha Experience online. So I would say I'm a bit excited, overexcited. I know that we're all going through a very chaotic time. I mean, not only on the outside, but also, as you've just said, Nahla, on the inside. And it takes lots of courage to show up. So I would salute all of us for just choosing today to show up and get together. Before we get started with the experience where Maya is going to be leading us, I'll just give a bit of overview about what Zaha is and our thinking behind it, the belief system, and how this experience fits in the experience of today. So as I've said, we've started 2 years ago in January, and we have conducted so far 32 experiences. This is experience 33rd, and we've done all of them like physically in presence, people getting together. This is the first online one. What we have noticed that from the experiences that we have conducted so far, that each individual human being, each one of us is a walking cultural instrument It encompasses our stories of joy, fear, and disappointment, and our societal influences, our intrinsic identity, our personal experiences. And this content within each one of us actually creates and gets recreated through the various interaction with the other. Two main truths for us here to acknowledge that me and the other are interdependent and interconnected, and we are relational creatures. We need each other. So since I have to interact with the other, and this other comes in different forms, it comes in 7 billion different forms, we humans have limited perception, limited capacity to understand the other in all of its forms. So we thought, since this is like a natural thing, this comes as part of our design as humans, we have two options. We either turn our back to it, or we as Zaha thought to do something different, which is basically to become intentional in the way we interact with the other. So what we have done, bringing people together from all walks of life, creating a space where there is attentive listening and free of judgment, with the objective of exploring this personal culture within the other. We have created 4 different themes: sharing, reflecting, and highlighting the uniqueness in the other and me. And we've called it the puzzle. The second theme is to share, reflect, highlight the shared humanness, the commonness, me and the other, and we've called it the mirroring. The third theme is me and the other coming together to co-create. So I borrow an insight from you, a perspective, and try to do something meaningful with it. And we've called it synthesis. And the fourth theme is basically reduction, where I get reduced and I just dissolve into the other. I give my full attention to the other. And this is what we're going to practice tonight, just listening to each other, reduction. We have noticed from the experiences that we have conducted that people walk out from the experiences with a renewed perspective, which might lead to, hopefully, an enhanced well-being, because people feel like they're being acknowledged. They express themselves and who they are and what they're made of beyond the social norms or the physical places they represent. And it also enhances the sense of ownership to the communities that we become part of, specifically people constantly living on the move, business professionals like us and immigrants who move in places. And most importantly, we hope that this would lead to some sense of or sort of growth/innovation, because this exposure to knowledge, different forms of knowledge of people coming from different backgrounds, would be enlightening. So what we do, we're still, assessing this impact, but our objective is to continue conducting experiences, bringing more different people together and explore what's within them and what they stand for within the 4 themes that we have shared with you. So we conduct the experiences through people who are courageous, empath, they can relate to the other. They have this proactiveness to learn about the other, and we call them maestros. They just help us to conduct and facilitate and curate the experiences, like Maya. So over to Maya, who's going to be Zaha Maestro for the first time.
The pressure is on.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
You're among friends.
Yes, humans, normal humans.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Before we get started, I just wanted to share a couple of tips that will help make our experience a more smooth journey for everyone, so that we can all get the most out of it. So first of all, as a maestro, this doesn't indicate any type of hierarchy. Your stories are just as important as mine. And in fact, I am here to shadow you and get the best out of you. That is my aim as a maestro. The music is inside you. We're just going to orchestrate it to have a wonderful experience with each other. Please give your mobile a break. So make sure that you're present, you're practicing attentive listening. Everyone will have an equal chance to speak. I will call out your names as we go through the experience. We will also have some sections that are timed. So we'll have around 5 minutes for each person. And I'll just be using this bell once your time is almost over. And also just, there's no wrong and right thing to say here. As long as you're contributing and sharing a story, you're already renewing someone else's perspective, and you're changing them and you're changing yourselves. And there's no need to comment or interact a lot with what other people are saying, because as Asma mentioned, the whole point of this is to become fully immersed in the other, listening to what they have to say, while also unraveling yourself alongside them. And this is a judgment-free zone, so don't worry about what you want to share. We all want to hear your stories, and every story is valuable. And the ultimate purpose of all of this is to truly connect with one another. So that's what we want to do here. And I think that with the whole COVID-19 situation, we are all starting to feel a bit alienated, because the mental isolation was already there, and now it's becoming physical and it's engulfing us. And for some people, it's unpleasant. For other people, it's a way for them to learn more about themselves. So we hope that it's an uplifting experience for everyone, and we want it to be watched, because we know that there are a lot of people that could relate to this right now, who need to hear that other people are going through the same experiences and feelings and emotions that they're going through. So we'll just start with introductions. If you can just tell us your name and how you're feeling today. I'll just go first. I'm Maya, and I'm feeling a little confused. This is how I'm feeling today. Asma?
To be honest, I'm a bit, of course, anxious, because this is the first online experience that we're holding in Zaha. But yesterday I journaled my heart out, and I woke up feeling lighthearted. It helped me just to jot down, the thoughts and the feelings, just to acknowledge them. Over to Matthew.
Hello. So because this opportunity allows us to stay at home and not venture too far, it's like an extended weekend where day by day I feel lazier and more tired. So honestly, like, how do I feel? Really tired. Like before this, I was gonna nap.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like an extended weekend. You guys?
Nahla?
Yeah.
So my name is Nahla Banhawi, and I was like, for the last couple of days, I've been anxious and not knowing exactly where to start my day from. This week, I started to change that by listening every day to motivating music and then starting my day. So today I feel like it's the first day to be on track. I now had experienced one of the rituals that I can continue till the end of the day. So hopefully this continues.
Nice. And Emmanuel?
Emanuele Mazzanti. Great to be with you. How I'm feeling today, I'm overcharged. I had 6 hours meeting with my big boss, and I think I had 4 cups of coffee.
Crazy.
Anxiety is a good word that has been going around, and I read this beautiful quote, and I think it also sums up my feelings right now, because we're in for something that we haven't experienced, and so all anxiety is just a lot of energy that we have, and that hasn't found the place yet. So we'll find an objective, we'll share, and we will watch anxiety transform into something beautiful and exciting.
Yes, amen to that. Awesome. So for the first part of our experience, we're just going to talk about the concept of aloneness, and a time in your life where you felt alienated or you felt lonely. These words have different meanings for different people. And I think that's a topic that is very close to my heart because it's a feeling I have felt for a very long time, ever since I was young. But its definition has changed over the years. It used to be something that I was very afraid of. It was something I didn't understand. And then it became something that I embraced and transformed into something more beautiful and something more positive. So, my first memory of being alone is me getting lost in city center mall at the age of 4 amongst crowds looking for my parents. And honestly, I felt like the world was ending. I was just like, Mom, Dad. And really, when you're a child stuck amongst crowds, you don't realize like how lonely that can feel. And as I grew up, that loneliness stayed with me and it became like this bubble. You know, teenage years, a lot of people feel like they're outcasts, like they don't belong, like they're not clicking with the right people. And I was the kind of teenager who was always with her iPod or with a book, but never with the right crowds, mingling in with everyone. And as I grew up, I found negative outlets for my loneliness. So drinking alcohol was one of them. So I would just go to, you know, happy hour and just become this really sad person. But then there was a moment in my life where all of that changed. I had a day where I actually wanted to end my loneliness by never feeling it again. And that was the turning point. And when I decided not to act on that, I decided that I just wanted to change the way I was living. And that's when I drew a line between what it meant to be alone and what it meant to be lonely. And to me, being alone means you're isolated physically, you feel separated. But to be lonely means you feel unlovable, you feel uncared for. It can be many things. It can be insecurity, it can be hurt or pain. And I think that connection is one of the things that could cure anyone from their loneliness. Like there are many TED Talks that come up about this, saying that, for example, any type of addict, they don't really need a medicine to get them off what they're doing. They need a connection. They need to feel loved. They need to feel cared for. And so the 3 ways that I made my loneliness more manageable, first way was connection, connecting with other people. And that's not only connecting with friends of mine and speaking to them. I'm talking about connecting with every person in your life and being truly in the moment. So when you're buying a coffee at a Starbucks, to truly connect with the barista there, or when you're in a cab, to have a conversation with the cab driver. Like connection is something that really keeps us alive. And I feel that it's instrumental, but with the busyness of everything that's going on, people forget to keep it. The second point is silence. And when I'm talking about silence, I'm talking about the silencing of your mind, of all of those thoughts that are telling you that you're lonely. Because part of being lonely to me is 20% a feeling that's true, but 80% thoughts that you have about that feeling. And sometimes you can feed these negative emotions more and they can amplify. So meditation, mindfulness have extremely helped me in getting there. So stillness of the mind. Another thing that I also started doing was dancing, meditative dance, where you just go to a room filled with like 40 people and everyone is dancing in a different way. And you do it for like 2 hours until your mind can no longer think of anything and you reach stillness at the end. And the last point of it is to be a child. And I think that as we grow up, we over philosophize things. And that's one thing that I am guilty of, that I'm always thinking far ahead, which is something commendable at certain times, but also very detrimental to my mental health at other times, because I'll be in bed thinking of 10 years from now and worrying about it. And I don't think children do that. Children don't worry about tomorrow. They don't worry about yesterday. They're just trying to go with the flow and be in the moment. And if we could all keep our inner child alive in us, children know they're loved. They know they have their parents. They know there's someone that they can run back to. So keeping those childlike, how can I say it, childlike behaviors or remaining playful is really helpful. And there's just one poem that I'm gonna share that to me explains getting over loneliness, even though the topic of that isn't it. It's just about how we can learn more from children. It's called Sometimes Silence is the Loudest Kind of Noise, and it's by a woman called Bazi Ikpi. And she says, everything I needed to know, I learned in a shopping mall. Like, don't wander off on your own. Like, know who you are. Like, know where you came from. Like, if you get lost, just stand there until someone finds you. And someone will always look for you, because someone will always miss you. And someone will always find you. And when you cry, someone will always remind you in that quiet, quiet lullaby voice that sometimes silence is the loudest kind of noise. So that's what I have to share. Who would like to go next about their story and a time where they felt alienated? It doesn't have to be as like poetic. Different people have different ways of expressing. It could be a joke. It could be an incident. It could be anything that crossed your mind while I was speaking. And I'll let you decide who wants to go first, whoever is feeling the warmest right now.
I can try.
Yes, Nahla.
Okay. So you talking about being alone and loneliness and so on brought this quote to my mind: alone but not lonely. Yeah. So as an extrovert, I always charge being with people, always finding to be with people. So your question telling me when I felt alone or lonely, I cannot have a story about that. But what I have is a story about always being with people, but there's this gap inside you that's never satisfied. You're in the place, you're with the people, but you're not with them and present actually. And it's very challenging for me to stay alone or in a place that I do nothing and be with myself. Until a couple of years ago, I went to the silent retreat, and it was an eye-opener. I stayed for 3 days not talking. It was active silence, so we had some, nice. Yeah, we had in the morning some sessions that we direct our thoughts in, and then we reflect personally. And since then, I started to be like, I want to stay with myself more. It's okay to stay with me. So this is what I have in the journey of being, I was lonely with people, but I'm content and alone with myself in a journey that I look to be more able to do stuff by myself. And when this quarantine started, I just searched for this solo travelers Facebook group, and I decided when this quarantine and traveling back, I would have on my checklist the first thing to do is to travel alone, and this would be a very big milestone because I usually do not do things alone. So this is what I have to share.
Amazing. And that's the thing, like sometimes the term has such a negative feeling. Like for some people, being alone, it's liberating. Like they're comfortable to be alone. Like different people have different perspective. Thank you for sharing, Nahla.
Thank you.
Emmanuel?
Yes, I think it's a good sequel to Nahla because as an extrovert, I too had many years, especially from my high school days and university days, where I was out and about having really big networks, and I was really friendly, and I thought this was like my way of being. The more active I was, the less I felt any kind of loneliness. But then I was just perpetrating the avoidance of being alone. But then one thing happened. That was after the university, I moved to Australia. And suddenly you start feeling a little bit of the alienation and loneliness that you mentioned. Because you're not lost in a mall. That tells a lot about my age. When I didn't think we had any malls when I was a kid. but you do feel that because you've never been really with yourself, and suddenly you have to build networks, and you're part of a different culture. I know that Asma, for instance, has been through that, and you feel removed from everything, and it's not helping. So you do start to feel like going out a lot and meeting people. And obviously being in Australia, going out to pubs and drinking is a good way to meet people. But I think it comes to a moment of realization where all that alienations and loneliness is really eating you inside. And I think for me, I don't know if there was a turning point, but I think it was more of a moment of realization that I had to spend more time with myself and be in peace with myself. And that meant a couple of things. Meant stop judging others from, the Australian culture or any comments about my culture. But it also means me accepting more of who I was and my history and revisiting that. And really the change always, I find that it really starts happening when you accept who you are. And so you start stating the truth about yourself. And so stating the truth that you've been really pretty sad in your life, even though you had a lot of friends and you were such an extrovert and such a social butterfly, but you didn't have any really meaningful connections because you never really paid time listening to anybody really, including your parents. But you were just, chasing the next fix of adrenaline, of new friends. And so being in that environment when you are alone, feeling loneliness, alienated from your culture, I think it's really started to change for me. And what happened then is that you do come to a good place in the end. And now I actually seek solitude whenever I can. Of course, now I'm married with children. I travel a lot and you meet clients and colleagues and workshops and facilitation. But as soon as I can hit the trails in the woods or be alone with myself, thinking, what am I grateful for, or planning, anything that, really gets me journaling, reading. I really love that. I don't feel like I need to move away from my center of gravity and who I am. But I think those experiences, especially when I moved to Australia and suddenly the whole fake world that you had around you crumbled, I think that was, in a way, a few years from there, it was a liberating experience. But I think the process of going through, by the time you start changing your narrative and looking inside you and getting to a place of acceptance and stating the truth, I think that was a long period of time, and it was a big stretch. And you really feel it working here and here. Yeah. So that's my relationship with alone and lonely. So now I can actually separate the two. The loneliness feeling I don't really feel much, but I treasure my solitude when possible.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Matthew?
Well, hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. So, well, how many of you guys have got children and families? Okay, cool. So if your default position is to have family and around, so it becomes then the different thing to be on your own. So with me, I'm in Dubai, I live by myself, and any time that I am by myself without the prospect of something going on, so it could be an evening in, it could be a Friday or Saturday night, and if there's nothing there's no invite to something or there's nothing going on, then the fact that I don't have a choice is what could make me lonely. But any time that there is an invite to do something, then I'm free to decide do I want to go out or not? So if I almost don't have a choice, then I will feel lonely. Only when I have the choice of doing something will I ask myself, am I in the mood for hanging out with people or not? And am I free to understand whether or not I want to go out or not? So I only get lonely if there isn't an opportunity that I know of to be socializing, which is why I can understand if your default position is to be living with family, that actually you have to almost opt out of that. And that's interestingly why I've been so surprised by this whole current experience. I'm looping it back to the COVID, because there's so many things going on and everyone is in the same position. You can drop in a call or a video call to anyone and just strike up a conversation and you're free to catch up. Whereas normally it's almost like just turning up on someone's door unannounced. So I'm finding that I'm much less lonely now in my house alone, now with the ability to contact lots of people, than I would normally be if things are just going on as normal and you feel like you're almost excluded. So I'm actually having quite a good time now. I'm free to dip in and out of any context, any relationship, or free to just tidy up, listen to podcasts, or try a new hobby, clean up the place or whatever. And so I'm now seeing my house, rather than a cell, more like a cocoon, and I'm quite enjoying it because I've got total freedom to dip in and out of any friendships or relationships. So I'm quite enjoying this and I'm feeling very lucky.
Thank you for that. That's such an interesting point. And I relate to that because I feel like I'm able to video chat with certain friends, and they're people that I wouldn't have been able to connect with before. But because we all know we're home, we're more open to connecting. And I really, really hope that humanity can take something away from this and like keep that connection open even after COVID-19 is over.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of interesting ways that this reshapes our society. I think that I can see a couple of things, like valuing frontline workers like doctors and nurses and even the delivery drivers much, much higher, and maybe even changing the way that we do work. But what do you reckon the societal changes could be?
I guess for me, I would just say people will appreciate things more. Like this is pretty much it. And going inwards instead of going outwards, that's going to be a new trend. Does anyone predict anything else that will shape us differently?
Well, there's so many things that we can talk about. And I was thinking just to reserve that until the last part where we can envisage the future out of, of Corona at the individual level or even collectively as communities and organizations. So this leaves me the last to share my story about...
I didn't forget you.
No, you know what's interesting? I've been sharing bits and pieces of my story during the previous Zaha experiences, when the theme is home, or the theme is about perseverance, or when a stereotype has failed to define me as a Palestinian. There are general understandings, as you've just referred to them, Emmanuel, that you're coming from a certain culture, and then people would project on the general understanding about your culture onto you, expecting you to perform up or down to them, So, and it's interesting that every time I share the story, I have the chance to challenge my narrative, it brings more consciousness to the choices that I had and I'm having as of today to interpret my story. So when it comes to, I would say I can relate more to alienation and isolation, whether it be as a choice that I have taken as a reaction to a situation where I could not relate to, or when it was intentional by trying to sidetrack me or alienate me from a certain place or situation. So my story with individual loneliness or cultural isolation goes back to 1991. I was 7 years old when the Gulf War happened. My parents used to live in Kuwait. They migrated from Palestine in the 60s to Kuwait, and 1991 they lost everything. So they just decided to go back to their hometown. And war just challenges you on every level. It doesn't only take your materials. It takes your strength away from you. It takes your knowing about life. And you would go to home expecting that you'll be embraced because you're being consumed because of war. And for some reason, we have developed different mannerisms because we grew up abroad. We spoke a different dialect, and that was very normal. On the top of the financial hardship that we had to go through, I could sense that there was some sort of rejection to who we are from the community. And I wouldn't judge them for that because they did their best, you know. But I could sense it when I go to school, when I go out. So that actually limited my mobility, my movement. I don't have many memories of me playing with other kids. And I do remember that I used to have a light blue veil, very like oversized one. And I would just put it on and just sit in the backyard and just I just lose myself to the mountains. Maybe I can describe them in details, but then I could not relate to the surrounding. And that was my source of pain because it comes down to the non-existence. You feel like you're not there, you know, not being acknowledged. And that's actually the underlying pain behind loneliness or aloneness or isolation. So, and for 15 years, like the family was busy trying to embrace the hardship post, you know, the war. And no one had time to help me understand the emotions. So I had no other choice but to resort to myself and just, you know, be more on the inward side of who I am. And I had struggled, you know, until I went to the UK in 2009 to just express who I am. I've always had concern about the weirdness of my story. And do I have something interesting to share with people? Would they be able to relate to me? And so I've always felt I am much more than the social norms of the physical place I'm coming from. There's a bit of all the places I've been to inside me. And it took me until recently just to stand on my own 2 feet and defend that I have transcended nationalism and I can relate to humans in general. You know, back then that would come with a sense of guilt because you're Palestinian, you would be expected to talk about occupation and, you know, and I have, my intense pain was outside that scene. And until recently, I started just to own it and to own the parts that I have always orphaned of my story. So to me, it all comes down to, it's interesting because you also grew up thinking that you've got to be independent, you've got to resort to yourself, you know, like reaching out, asking for help is just a sign of weakness. And I had some sort of confusion because I had the other who judged me when I was in the village for 15 years. I had the other who actually sacrificed everything, which is basically my elder brothers, just to take care of the family who dropped out from school and they were working as laborers. And so I was alternating between seeing the other as a source of help or seeing the other as a source of validation, as a source of validation or as a reference for the worthiness of who I am. But as I've said, until recently, I have just, you know, owned it and I embraced who I am and understood the implications of that isolation on the way I conduct myself nowadays. So I would say it's all about lacking the capacity to relate to the surrounding, whether it be another human that you want to relate to, a community, an organization. So this is how I relate to isolation / alienation / aloneness / loneliness.
Thank you for sharing that. Honestly, like when I was working on like bullet points of what we're gonna follow, my aim was just to see that everyone has their own loneliness, and in our aloneness, we're kind of together, which is extremely ironic because when you're inside your head, and you feel like you're alone. But then when people share their stories, you see that we have the same hurts, same pain, same joy. And at the end of the day, everyone wants to love and be loved and just feel connected to someone else. And I feel extremely grateful that we're all sitting here together and doing this today. Thank you everyone for coming. And now we'll move to the second section, where I wanted us to engage our five senses. I feel like because we've been stuck inside, we've been spending a majority of our time looking at screens, and not a lot of people have been good at exercising or cooking or reading or just trying to engage other senses in your body. And so I was wondering if we could all share our COVID-19 quarantine experience through the lens of vision, through the lens of hearing, through the lens of smell, taste, touch. And so I'll be asking one by one. I'll start with vision, and I'll let Nahla go first. And my question to you, Nahla, is there something that you have seen that has been a big part of your quarantine / COVID-19 experience that you would like to share with us?
I'm trying to think.
It could be an object or a picture or something you saw on TV. It like anything that you see that has resonated with you or really stuck with you throughout this experience.
Okay, I would say that I have this plant in my balcony, and I water it usually occasionally. But since the COVID, I try to find a spot that I can have, again, my morning ritual to come in place. So I take the coffee looking in the balcony, and I discovered that I started seeing this plant dancing every day. So in the morning, I see it dance and the birds on it. So this is something I never saw it before.
Amazing. Do you feel like we're seeing things that were always there?
Yes.
But now we actually have the time to realize them.
Yeah. How long have been this plant dancing and I didn't know about it?
That's beautiful. Emmanuel, what about you?
I'm a little bit lucky and spoiled because Sweden is probably one of the few places in the world that hasn't really imposed a strict quarantine. But I still changed my approach, and I love running. And when I go out, I like to be also as fast as possible, or be really competing for marathons. But what happened now is that I'm blessed with a lot of trails and forests and lakes here as soon as I step out the doorstep. So I started changing my routines, and instead of going for kilometers or time or the fast track, the one with the less hills, in the last few weeks, I only run in the woods on trails, and I don't even take the watch. I just go out, enjoy. I stop, look at the scenery, come back. So my vision is now full of beautiful places. I'm happy to send you some pictures after this call.
Awesome. Can you describe them?
Yeah, so it's a lot of forests and plantations of pine trees. And then you have these trails, they basically just go through, and sometimes I get lost, but I try to remember where I came from. So I go back and then I go home, and I try the next time. And so the day before yesterday, I discovered this new lake, and it was fantastic. And some places it was very steep with the edges of the forest and then the lake, and windy, and so you don't know where you're going, so you stop and look, and it's not a matter of time now, it's a matter of taking in the scenery. And I'm not very good at describing because I didn't.
Sounds lovely. I want to be there.
I'll send the pictures. Well, to me, I moved from Australia to Sweden, so I went from beaches to forests, and I'm still I can't believe the vision that I'm blessed with. So I'm happy to share it. It's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Yes, please do.
I will.
And Matthew, what about you?
So only today, did you see how clear the sky was? Because we've either had rain over the last week or two,
And
or
dust.
we've just had and dust and just overcast. But today, I don't know if it was because of the minimization of driving and planes, but the sky was much bluer than normal, and it made me miss the sky or the ability to actually just appreciate it. I think because normally I'm sleeping in and missing when the sun reaches where I am, as in this side of where I catch the morning sun. And this morning, it's bright, incredibly blue. And it's just such a lovely time of year with the perfect temperature. I don't know if I'm feeling a little bit miffed that we're missing it or actually just appreciating it, because we can still go out, even if it's just, in my case, a very small little patio. But the sky and the color, nice.
Amazing. And Asma, what about you? What's a vision that has stuck with you?
It's actually, I did not want to reflect on it before the experience because I wanted to see what comes to my mind first when you ask the question. There's a huge construction work happening next to where I live, and I would pass by each and every day. It's really massive. They have like hundreds of people working there, and I've never actually paid attention to people or the color of their outfits or so yesterday I spent like 10 minutes just observing their movements and thinking of how they feel actually. Nowadays, being far away from their families, it must be challenging for them. And another incident, I have a younger sister who is married and who's living in Dubai also, and I stayed with her for a couple of days. But then I ran away because she's such a heavy smoker and I can't tolerate smoking. But she did something that I'm really very proud of that made me just dwell on her face for like 2-3 minutes because she's leading a team in PR and media. And she was asked to lay off some people. So she suggested to the boss that she would take 2 months off without salary, and then at least they can keep the rest of the team. And she's been always the youngest. You would never expect the youngest in the family to grow up one day to live up to their morals and their principles. That would make you really, you want to be ahead of them because you're the elder. I was touched. I was moved. Then I took my time just acknowledging their presence and how proud I am of her. So, because, I live with her, but I don't take my time just observing her and just seeing her walking around. So that would be the second thing, actually, I paid attention to.
Nice. For me, I've been obviously spending more time at home, just like everyone. So I live in a villa, so it has 2 floors, different rooms, like true communal living, like everyone has their own room. And we're in a sandy area in Dubai, so it's not the lushest, but we have a couple of trees and birds that chirp in the morning. And our front yard is quite vast, but it's made purely out of cement. There's no grass there. And because of the whole curfew thing, people have been afraid of working out outside, and I've still tried to get some kind of activity in. So one vision that has stuck with me is just seeing my house from different perspectives because I'm working out in front of it. And when I'm doing sit-ups, I'm just like seeing things, like metaphorically seeing things from different perspectives, but also in real life, seeing things from different perspectives. And because I'm spending more time at home, I'm realizing nice things about it. And I feel like for the longest time, it has felt like a house, but now it's feeling like a home. And I'm suddenly realizing the plants that we have outside or the color, or even we have like Some walls are made out of a mosaic style, like these small details in my home that I never ever realized that I'm suddenly starting to see now because I'm in quarantine.
Like the freakishly high ceilings.
Yes, the freakishly high ceilings. Matthew knows. Yeah. All right. So the second point we'll talk about is hearing. And this could be a sound, it could be something someone has said to you, it could be a song that's helping you get through this. Just a sound that has really stuck with you during all of this. And I feel compelled to share ambulances, okay? I have never heard them, but I feel because we're in a panic, I'm noticing them more. And I feel like I'm hearing an ambulance every other hour. I don't know if this was the case before, but I know that now every time I hear one, my heart completely drops. That's a sound that has resonated with me recently. What about you, Nahla?
I cannot find a sound that I can relate to, but when you, yani, it's just like, again, I always been in motion, but now I'm hearing people more. So I would say it's the sound of people that you do calls with, that you connect with, and so on. So like it's different because now you can hear the emotions of the people and how they feel, and you cannot see them, you cannot touch them, you cannot have a surrounding around them. So there's no one sound, but there are different people voices with various emotions. So it's like a sixth sense that develop. This is what I feel.
Yeah, I can go next. My brother-in-law once did an experience where they go to a very like special place with a certain condition, and you have the chance to listen to the noises of the internal organs processing, and it's really very terrifying kind of experience. And
wow.
I've always wanted to do that, you know.
Interesting.
There's this non-stop, you know, factory within, and the processing of the thoughts, the food, and everything, the breathing. And actually, intentionally, I allocated 1 hour this week, and I was just literally listening to the beats of my heart. I've done it for 1 hour, and this is something I've never done it before. Like, you know, you would chill, you would relax, you would read, but then intentionally not to do anything and just listen to the noises coming from within. That was a powerful thing to do, to be honest. And finally, I had the time to do it. But I would still want to go for that experience that my brother-in-law did.
Sounds scary to me.
Yeah, but scary things are interesting.
So it's interesting that you say that you enjoyed that, because a little while ago I was on medication that made my heart beat so hard and so loudly that when I would sleep, I'd wake up from the sound of my heartbeat in my ear, and it's not nice. It's like it keeps you awake, and sometimes it's the sound, and sometimes it's a punch. You actually like wake up from a jolt. So I know that, but I don't like it. I'd rather not hear my heartbeat. But it would be nice if it's calm and you're tuning into it. But
maybe you can replace it with the sound of your breath.
Or the sound of someone else's heartbeat, I'd take.
That was left for Emanuele. He wanted to talk about it.
No, I just had a funny. Oh man, this is gonna reveal my age as well. But
no, please.
Just thinking of Matthew and the waking up with the sound of the heart beating. This is embarrassing, but I'm gonna share it anyway because I feel safe here. A couple of nights ago, I actually woke up to the sound of my own snoring.
Did you really snore?
The only problem with that is you can't go to another room. Even if you go to another room, it doesn't get any quieter.
I said, this has never happened before. What's wrong with me? And I said, I don't know, maybe I had too much because, you know, one of this, well, maybe we'll talk about the taste and the smells, but one of the signs of this quarantine or this crisis is that we're spending so much more time in the kitchen that it's not, everything will be fine in the end, apart from the actual jeans and clothes when we go back to work.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think we were on hearing it. Can I go next, Matthew? Because you started, but then you didn't share. So maybe
no, it's fine. But you've just reminded me. Like recently, I was burping so much that while I was asleep a couple of nights ago, I'd be fast asleep and I'd hear this and I'd be shocked by a sound of a and I would be asleep and I make so much gas even while I'm asleep. I burp myself awake. And I just hear this squeak in my skull. The thing, like, I got a proper problem with like metabolizing, and I don't know what it is that I eat that could be causing it, but I'll be fast asleep and I hear a horn like in my, and it's like, anyway. So yeah, I don't think I snore, but I did burp myself awake. So you carry on.
I just on the I think it's difficult to pick up from here. Either we keep digging, Matthew, or we try to elevate the conversation.
Oh my God.
We're in this together.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to the hearing, I want to pick two. One is the voice of my parents. I've always been quite independent and. You know, I remember lectures from my dad when I was a kid. You know, obviously you get up late or you come home late, and so when I went to Australia, I had probably there were the days before Skype and Zoom, and so we had maybe once a month, once a couple of weeks, a phone call, and I kept that kind of behavior until recently, and now I'm connected at least 2-3 times a week. I could do more, but I think it's an habit that I like to keep even after this crisis, because they're confined in their homes, in home detention for a month. So when I think of trying to be more compassionate, when I think of someone at home all day in their 70s, then probably hearing the voice of their son even once a day, it's a good thing. They have other brothers and sisters they can ring as well, but and the other one is the voice, the noises that I'm not hearing. You know, being in the Nordics here, going through Finland or Sweden, Norway, Denmark, at least 3 times a month on a plane. I'm not hearing the sound of the alarm clock ringing and the taxi coming and the planes. So it's a really beautiful thing not to hear. Getting up and being more in tune with the day. So getting up with the sunset and sunrise and going back with the sunset without, you know, early wake ups or late night traveling. So one things that I hear and one that I don't, but I think both are quite startling compared to the pre-COVID-19.
I love what I'm not hearing as well. Like my street has an area. Basically, there's no radar where I live, which is for
there's speed bumps though.
There's speed bumps, but there's no radar, and there's a lot of people who love to go on the street next to my house in sports cars, and they just like completely drift. And this is a constant sound for me. But it's part of the deal because we live in a good area. We're 2 minutes away from the main road. So we just deal with it and it just becomes something that you hear. And I'm just loving how quiet it's become in the evenings because of the curfew. And that you can actually keep your window open and not hear anything. And I'm truly loving that.
Well, my one is that because I'm not going out and the weather's lovely. Maya, I'm not joking. Yeah, this is serious. Because we're not going out as much, I want the fresh air coming in. I've got the window open, and I don't normally have the window open because when it's hot, you know, you've got the heat coming in, and when it's cold, normally you're just popping in and out anyway. So, and you're going out, so I can't keep the window open because the cat would jump out. So now I'm opening the window and I'm hearing the sound of the birds, and I've never heard birds. I'm in the marina, so where are there birds? It's not like there's tons of trees. So I'm hearing the birds, and I realized only today why I haven't really heard that before. The reason I haven't heard that before is because I haven't kept the window open. I haven't kept the window open because, as I found out today, the cat has jumped out the window 6 times. She's jumped in twice. One time, though, I get a delivery to the house. It's something from the pharmacy because, you know, trying to limit going out. I open the door in just my pants, and it's the girlfriend of the neighbor next door. And she's like, your cat is in my apartment. She thinks it's her house, and I don't like cats. Can you come and get her? I was like, yeah, let me just put on some shorts. So that's why I don't normally have the window open. And so then I rescued the cat, and she just did it again. So fuck her. So let me grab her and make. Let me grab her and make her say hi.
I was just gonna say we're doing very well with timing, that I'm not having to stop anyone, so we can just go ahead. Is there anyone who would like to share next, or are we're good
we're done?
Yes.
Yeah, we shared.
So next is smell. So I'll say there are 2 like contradictions when it comes to smell for me, when it comes to this experience, but both of them remind me of my mother. It's the smell of cooking fresh food. Hello, kitty. Because everyone's paranoid about ordering food from outside, I'm having to cook at home more often, which means that I'm eating in more often. The smell of onions, garlic, which is like the base for every Arabic dish, and our spices. And it's really just reminding me of living around my mother and the smell of her cooking on Friday mornings. And there's the other side of it, which is like the extreme cleanliness that everyone is having to take a part of. That smell of like Clorox and Dettol and detergent. And my mother also is very OCD, so she loves to keep things clean. She used to like chop up soap bars and put them inside our drawers so that our clothes always smell fresh. And so both of those smells are just like making me feel like she's around. And she is someone that I'm missing a lot because she is over 60. So I don't want to see her because I don't want to expose her, because it's said that people of young age could be carriers, and people over 60 are at risk, especially if they have underlying health conditions. I'm not sure if that's 100% confirmed, but I don't want to take the risk. And so we've had a distance. And so I've been just like remembering her through all of the smells in my house. What about you, Emmanuel? Oh, we can't hear you.
I know, I did one of those things like, oh, it's so embarrassing.
How do you pronounce your name? How do you pronounce your name?
Asma, you know, I gave up on my name. So
that's okay.
So that's why I wish I was called Eric the Viking in Sweden, but so my name is Emanuele.
Emanuele. Okay, I'm gonna get that right.
Emanuele. But in Australia, pretty much straight away gave up on Emmanuel, and then you get
Emmanuel.
Emmanuel. Or Manuel, like the Spanish writer from Fawlty Towers, for a Spanish waiter. So now I tell everybody it's Am, and they call me Am in the Nordics. It's easier because they're still underdeveloped, the Vikings, coming out of the caves with guttural sounds. Like it's a really tough language to learn. So I blame it on them. But smell. I should say food as an Italian, but I'll save it for taste. But no, smell, I think it's when you're in the Nordics, the winters are quite harsh. And this is the time of the year where nature comes back. And suddenly you start seeing flowers and lush green lawns. And so I think it's just it's a striking difference with the wind picking up all the scents that you haven't really smelled for 7 months or, since August, basically, or September. So it's really, And for someone like me, maybe with a bit of allergy to pollen and fresh.
I have allergies.
Yeah. It's also maybe not a time that you enjoy from a physical standpoint, but definitely it's a beautiful, beautiful smells around.
Nice. And Nahala?
Okay, so I love the sense of smell very much. Um, yeah, and all the hot drinks that we're currently doing in terms of Corona. So I smell all the types of drinks and the herbs and everything. So it's interesting. I like to smell different spices, different stuff like that. And also smelling nectars makes me more like, this oil nectars that you get with the candle and then you start on using it. Usually I sometimes use these nectars in the weekends, but I decided to use them more often now. So I feel like the smell sense is a big part of my day these days.
Lovely. What's your favorite hot drink?
I do now. It's like lemongrass with black tea.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lovely. Asma?
I can't think of a specific smell, to be honest. I've been using ginger a lot. I cook a lot myself. And so I've been using lots of ginger and turmeric. I've been very experimental when it comes to cooking with ginger because I don't think it's something that we use often in the Levant area when it comes to cooking. What else? When you ask this question, I feel like we're still understanding what's happening. There's this strong rush of thoughts and emotions that we're still trying to connect with the inner being and try to understand what's happening and then try to build up the routine and bring us to being, that would be the second level. But I can't think of anything outside what I have mentioned. So basically turmeric and ginger maybe. Yeah, this is what I've been spinning recently a lot.
Nice. And Matthew?
So I have one funny story about smell.
I hope it's
Only
a nice story, Matthew.
and one. Okay, I'll start off with the just smell related story and one with a funny one. So the one is, if we're staying in and I live alone, I ask myself in the morning, should I bother putting on aftershave once I have had a shower if no one but me might smell it, and I may not smell it after a while anyway because it's on me anyway? So I'm like, antiperspirant, that makes sense. Aftershave, I'm not going out. What's the point? So we have to decide on what's the normal level of the new level of acceptability. But the funny one is this, right? There's four main symptoms to COVID that I'm aware of, right? Coughing, shortness of breath. When people get it originally, they cough, they get diarrhea, and they also lose a sense of smell. So I was asleep the other night and I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't stop coughing. And I started to panic because I didn't know why. I haven't been out for a long time, so there's no reason why I should be panicking. And I couldn't go back to sleep. And within about 30 minutes, I had to go to the toilet. So I was like, fuck, that's 2 out of 3. Okay, third thing, have I lost my sense of smell? So while I'm in the toilet, I went, and I was like, fuck, no, I haven't lost my sense of smell. It was horrible. No, give me COVID, this is So yeah, that was the funny thing. Oh, I've got a bad cough. Oh no, I've got the lungs. I've got it. One second. So yeah, that was my funny I don't have COVID story.
Thank you, Matthew.
Happy to share.
I thought you wanted to lead to the next sense, which is taste, but no, you stopped at the smell.
And we're working our way up to that one.
So, but is it just me? Because, I got the glasses off now. They're only for the computer, but I think I've seen Matthew in 3 different outfits right now. Is it?
Yeah, I think so. And then I said, no, maybe I'm just hallucinating.
It's a really classy thing because every topic almost it changes the I love your thinking, man.
Nala, do you know what they're talking about?
No.
Maya?
No.
No.
Okay, fine.
So then I'll now, because you said social experiment, I thought I'd test you guys. I'm on my fifth
But
different
that's a
color
good thing.
t-shirt.
It
I'm on
means
my
we
fifth.
were so into the stories.
Maya,
Yes, yes,
I'm on my
yes.
fifth different color top to see if anyone would notice a change. So 2 people did and 2 people didn't.
Actually, I thought it's like, I noticed the blue one, but then it's like white and blue. And then I thought maybe I have like, you have a jacket or something. But yani.
So I've got one more change that I was going to make. I was like, I'm going to do one every 20 minutes. That's why I asked Maya at the start, how long is this on for? And then I did the maths. I was like,
You were doing some calculation on the side.
well,
Honestly,
that's
I
a
was so immersed in the stories, I did not notice. I was just listening.
So I wanted to see how many times and how many people would spot it.
No, it's just,
So yeah, I've done 5 changes.
Thank you. I'm never going to forget this. Thank you, Matthew.
but you're almost afraid, to call it out because you say maybe it's like Jack Nicholson in that movie where he changes scopes every time he touches them. So it's like maybe Matthew, every time he scratches himself, he has to put a new t-shirt. I don't know. No, the thing is like most people don't really notice. So I just thought I'd see how many times I could do it. So before this whole thing started, I lined up 6 t-shirts over here. That's awesome.
And here are the changes. And there was a black one before you joined. So I'm on number 5.
But I will do it before the end of the week for work and see if people react. That's
Lovely. Okay. So moving on to taste. And I'll let Emanuele go now. See, I got it right.
Emanuele, yeah.
Emanuele, thank you.
Emanuele.
But now one of the great things about being home more is being to actually have the time to prepare the focaccia and pizza and handmade pasta. And so I've been trying this new focaccia recipe. So it's almost like the pizza dough, but it's softer, it's thicker, and it's got rosemary and olives and everything. And it tastes fantastic because instead of just doing the dough, making the dough and then letting it settle, whether it's overnight or for a long time during the day, I actually do it in 4 times. It's a recipe that I've looked up. And so, but you need to be home for 6 hours because you have you go in and basically work on it 4 times. So it's been amazing, and it just tastes totally different, and it's so soft and crispy on the outside and soft, and so it's been really good. I have to say this from this perspective. I think all of us spending more time in the kitchen from that perspective. It's been quite liberating in a way. Some people like gardening, put their hands in the soil, but I find it frustrating. Apart from doing the weeds and all that, but cooking, I could spend hours and hours and hours in the kitchen. So that it's one of the reasons why I can't wait to get to Dubai and enjoy one of your experiences in the kitchen.
Yes.
Sharing.
Hopefully, we'll be able to congregate as groups again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Soon. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Not the recipe, huh?
Oh.
No, I will share the recipe as well.
Tell us, please.
Yes. We have the photo of the forest and the recipe of the focaccia.
I mean, I'm going to follow up on these. No.
I was hoping you know, but I've got them here as well on my note.
Perfect.
Read to us the recipe. Take us there.
What you mean now? No, but let finish the round, and then more than happy.
Okay, sure. Nahla?
Okay, so before the COVID, I got like an espresso machine in my home, and I had this. My birthday is in Valentine's Day, so last Valentine's Day I got a big box of a lot of tastes of coffee and so on. So I didn't have. I usually do my coffee on my way to work, so I got used to like taking the coffee and going. But since this quarantine in the morning, seeing this dancing plant and tasting the different tastes of the espresso, I discovered the flavors are completely different. Like there's the before, like if you taste coffee, there are different levels of it, different levels of intensity. When you have like this Indian taste, other like herbal taste, other like chocolate taste, and so on. So it's a whole world that I decided to like. It was there, but I didn't taste it before. I used to drink it, but I didn't taste it because I was using all my senses. I'm driving, I'm drinking, I'm talking to people, and so on. So just focusing on drinking the same coffee that I used to drink with these different flavors that were a gift from my friends, I'm enjoying a gift every day in the morning. So this is like an interesting taste experience.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Nice.
Matthew?
Let's save Matthew.
Yeah, save me, because I can't think of anything right now.
And you don't need to. It's fine.
You've done enough.
Okay, I have one. Oh, is it actually my turn though?
I mean,
Yes.
if you feel comfortable, yes.
Yeah, if you feel so.
I bought butter again. So I've been avoiding dairy for about 3 or 4 months, and I got butter again. And actually going back to it, it doesn't taste as good as I remember. It used to be creamy, but now it tastes buttery. And I got used to just using olive oil for so long that I feel a bit let down. Yeah, that's
I'm
it.
so sorry for that.
Yeah, I
Buttery
feel like
disappointment.
because the butter in Cheesecake Factory with their bread is just, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Butter in my house with my bread. I have been making bread. So I've been learning to make bread. And the first lot I made, which I accidentally made 6 times too much because I didn't read the recipe, I made 6 loaves worth by mistake. Someone said, "Oh, that's a lot of yeast you're using." And I was like, "That's what it says." But then I didn't read the fact that it said it makes 6 loaves worth. So it came out all right because I added the yeast to warm water. But when I tried making it again by making the dough better without adding the yeast to warm water, it didn't rise. It was basically like cracker bread. It wasn't very good. So I haven't been struck by any flavors since I've been in the house. What I do is, to be sensible, I go out on quarantine shops. I get like a week's worth of Haribo, chocolate and biscuits. And then I eat them all in one night and I go, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Because they're there. You don't stop a box of biscuits until they're done. You don't finish Haribo until the bag is finished.
I agree.
Exactly.
Honestly, I just want to take a minute to say, like, I'm loving the mix here, and I'm loving how different all of our responses are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for someone who takes herself so seriously, it's nice to hear funny stories and different stories and just see how like we all have really different experiences, even though we think we're going through the same thing. And it's beautiful. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. Matthew, please stop the profanities and we'll move on.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I have an Italian mate in the apartment, and she's usually very busy. She works in the film industry, there's lots of production and long working hours. So we hardly had the opportunity to cook together. So recently, like yesterday, I was making something. We use lots of seasoning in our cooking in the Levant area. So lots of garlic, as Maya said, and coriander and the olive oil. And she was making something very simple, the Italian way. So I was like, why don't I just pour some of the gravy I prepared on your dish? She's like, yeah, please go ahead. And we did so, and she enjoyed it. So that was something interesting, like the mix that we came up with at the end, and it tasted really nice. As I've said, I've been cooking a lot, so I've been cooking all the stuff that I've always wanted to cook. The stuff that would take time. So lots of I've been taking my time to do marination. So I would always in marinating the stuff, and I would go very creative on the stuff that I use for the marination. So yeah, so this is what I've been up to recently. This is how I can relate to tasting.
Nice. I don't think there's a sense for it, but it's worth noting all the time we feel we have on hand. And all the things that we've become able to do because we know we're going to be home for a while. Like for me, it's doing batches and batches of laundry, or deciding to finally dye my hair at home, instead of going to the salon. So I'm just loving all of the extra time that we're getting to just be and do things.
I think just one thing I wanted to share in relation to all the sharing that we've done tonight, I think the thought that nothing is happening out there. This entire universe is now shutting down. So we don't have that fear of missing out on something. Nothing is happening out there. And this is why you're finding the time, but it's been always there.
Yeah.
So on a weekend, you can't just spare 1 hour to dye your hair, of course, but you're always busy thinking of what I can join. There's so many interesting things happening, out there. So I hope that this would make us more grounded. I know now we're very much panicking, but I hope eventually, once we comprehend that this is going to be happening for some time, once we realize nothing is happening out there, maybe we'll have more time and capacity to focus on the feelings and the emotions.
Yes.
We don't run away from them.
Yes. And possibly create and do all the things that we never had the time to do before. For me, writing was this thing, that I would leave one day. I'm going to have the time. I'm going to live in the right country and have the right work-life balance to pursue my poetry and to write my thoughts down. And now I'm just getting to it. And it feels wonderful to be able to do that. I need to share a taste. For me, it's very simple. It's vitamin C. It's oranges, which I have been overdosing on every day because they're supposed to help with your immunity. I don't think I'll ever eat oranges again after these few months are over because I'm eating so much of them. Great. So leaving us with the last one, which is touch. Now, for me, it's the lack of it. And there was one person in specific I wanted to see before this whole quarantine started, and that was my mother. My mother, she has aches in her back. And I feel like one thing that, at least in Arab culture, we forget to do is that you can physically show love to your parents. I feel like we grow up and we're just it becomes just a kiss. It's fleeting.
Did you say you can't?
We don't. So you the habit of just leaning your head on a parent's shoulder. You feel khalas, I've grown up. I'm not gonna do this now. It's very rare for it to happen, and when it does, it's such a big deal. That has been.
Emmanuel is shocked.
Yeah.
Look at his face.
I'm surprised. I've never heard of that.
You look kind of shocked.
Well, I thought there was a very British thing, the lack of contact with parents, maybe. I don't know. Or in Australia, they're saying, oh, come on.
That's what the stereotype says.
But I thought Arabic country would be like Italian, very much hugs and kisses to the parents.
We are hot-blooded, and we do have, when we greet you, hugs and kisses. But I'm talking about, hey, Dad, I feel like hugging you right now.
Yeah.
No, I know what you mean. I wouldn't just hug your dad, but I would with my family.
So yeah, continuing my story. So for my mother, she has back pain, and one way that I've started to show her love is like I like to massage her back. And the last time that I saw her, she worries a lot. She's a bit anxious at times, and sometimes I feel hopeless. I feel like really, really, I wish I could help. I wish I could be there 24/7. But unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. You have a job. You also need to explore who you are, and somewhere in between, you're still trying to be there for everyone. So one way I started showing my love is just by giving her a nice back rub, and she loves it, and she sends me nice voice notes the next day, and she goes like, I missed my alarm for work because I slept so well. Thank you so much. And just hearing those words makes me so happy. So the last time I gave her a back rub, she's like, oh, you should get an oil because usually we use a cream, and I keep telling her with an oil it's going to be different. So I went and I bought massage oil, and then the whole quarantine happened, and now like the massage oil bottle is just hanging around in my room, and I'm just waiting for the opportunity to see her again and to give her a back rub and a hug and a kiss, and for everything to be okay. So that's the touch that I'm missing. Asma?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, just to reflect on what you have shared. Expressing emotions and showing feelings. I know that sometimes we feel like it's easy, we can generalize because of so many experiences and people around us that we build on our understanding and say, like Arabs don't hug much, or I mean, when it comes to the parent to kids, but we have a warm culture. But we're not taught how to express our emotions. I mean, there must be a reason. You don't just show up and you just hug, You have to console, you hug because you haven't seen someone for a while. It's not like something that you would just feel, I just feel like hugging you, and then I would hug you as like parents to kids and kids to parents. But I have bridged this gap, My father has, grew up in the mountains herding, and he's 75, and he's not someone who actually expresses his emotions. So we grew up, my elder siblings, accusing him of not being, you're not emotional. He's like, love is in the heart. He said it in his own way, simple words. Love is in the heart. You don't have to show it. Of course you have to show it, because this is how people can relate to the fact that they're being loved and embraced. I bridge that gap with my parents. I'm a very touchy person. I make sure I express my emotions at the spot, and I don't shy away from them. So I do really miss being around my parents. I'm someone who would clip, the nails and help my mom to shower. I'm very intentional about it. And this is something I have invested a lot more in. 2 years ago, when my father fell sick and we were about to lose him, so I've learned my lesson. So this is something I'm really missing, like hugging my mom. I miss her. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
We're touching. Yeah, I'm good. Over to you, Matthew.
So there's only two things. Well, one is like because we can't travel, I can't see the person I've started speaking to internationally, where I was supposed to be seeing this girl that I've sort of got really close to, although we've only met online, and I should have been there by now. So it's quite annoying because now the distance is is palpable, whereas previously it would have been like, okay, it's a flight away. So that is annoying, and I don't have the same. It's not like in your cases where it's parents, but it's a distance that now prohibiting the start of something rather than the continuation of something. So it feels almost more fresh. It feels more sharp. But in terms of positive feelings, the only thing that's a physical sensation that I'm experiencing here, aside from the weather being lovely and us not really necessarily making the most of it, is that I am mindful of the fact that normally we're in our societal bubble, or we're going out and we're making the most of going out. But now that I feel like it's musical chairs and the music stopped, and if we're staying in and we're staying in for a large period of time, we're in our home. And right now I'm looking around and I'm thinking, well, there's actually nothing that I need. Like, the couch is comfortable. I've got the bed sheets that I need. I've got the pillowcase that I need. I've got the clothes here that I need. I've got the AC that I need. So I actually go to bed at night. The temperature is exactly how I like it. The bed has a topper on it. It's perfectly soft. I've got these super soft feeling sheets, and I actually don't need someone around, because I'll get into bed and I just go, like, there's no sound that's bothering me. There's no smell that's bothering me. The temperature's perfect, and the comfort level is exactly what I need right now. And I'm so happy without anything else. And even though I'm an extrovert and I need people around, what I'm feeling right now is like I'm on a cloud, and if there was someone else in my bed that I was hugging, I'd have to be careful about where I'm laying or making sure that my limbs are in a comfortable position. And I'm very happy in that moment of sleeping on my own, on my comfy bed, with the temperature as it is. And I feel like the music stopped, but there's nothing else that we need. It's not like I've got food in the fridge. Everything's right. Everything's comfy. So it just makes me realize how lucky I am, and that there's other people that are, putting themselves in harm's way to keep us safe. And I got, I think about just the luxury of bed, the luxury of the right temperature, the luxury of that safety that means that it literally feels right, and then you fall asleep. It's just comfy. Life's good.
Yes. I mean, it's been a gratitude adjustment for sure, especially when, other people who work in delivery services, who are still going in and out, and like they were doing the sanitization drive over the weekend, and there's so many chemicals going on. And I still know some people who are ordering food from outside and did that during the sanitization. And I'm just like, if it's not good for us and we're being told to stay in, why doesn't that same logic apply to a food delivery guy who's still operating and still bringing food to your home? So it's definitely a gratitude adjustment, and that we're at home and we're safe and we're healthy and we're fine, when other people don't have that option and still have to be outside and have to be exposed, even the healthcare workers. So yeah, I mean, we're seeing who the real heroes are. That's how I'm seeing it for sure. Emanuele?
I was gonna use the touch in a more transcendent the physical sense, but I've been touched by the amount of people that I hadn't necessarily heard for a long time coming out of the blue, just asking, how's your parents in Italy? How are you? And let's connect. And even like the explosion of chats on WhatsApp with former high school friends. Two of them are doctors in Italy on the front line, so really feeling the situation on their shifts. And so I think it's been just I've been really touched by how we managed to connect through this crisis. And we can go into, I think Asma mentioned before, getting into the future later, but it's my sincere hope that this connection stays. And at the same time, I wonder if this is happening because we all know it's permanent. So, Sylvia from high school doctor in Faenza doesn't really have to have this kind of conversation after the crisis. Or similar to Matthew, if this kind of appreciation of the bed and your own loneliness in it, but you know, it's because you know that it's going to end, and that person that you will meet, you know, then it will be fine that way. But so because it's temporary, all these things that are happening, is it just because we know that the horizon is not an infinite one? But it's been really nice to get. I wish I would be able to copy and paste, but I always need to start from scratch in my responses to be genuine and authentic. But when I look at the analytics on my phone, you know, the amount of time spent on WhatsApp is like, oh, or LinkedIn messages, like, oh man, it's too much. I should really tone it down a bit. But it's all to connect with people. It's not to browse or, you know, waste time in a way.
So your touch is more of like someone touching your heart, people reaching you and connecting with you.
Yes, because otherwise, like as my, you know, being Italian, I tend to, even at school, you know, I go in and other parents goes, no touch. I says, yeah, you're right. So yeah.
Thank you for that. Nahla?
So I have two reflections on that. One is that I keep on, whenever I go out to get something for home or groceries or so on, I have this fear of touching anything. And there is this media between touching the thing. So you have to be wearing a tissue, wearing a glove, or even putting a sanitizer afterwards. So I feel there is this veil or shield between me and the outer world. And it's kind of annoying a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's just like, I became like a bit like, should I touch that or not? And then I became in peace. No, I'm not gonna wear gloves and like that. I'm gonna sanitize my hands well and so on. It's very hectic for me, and I try to minimize going out. And the other day I had the supermarket delivering the groceries, because it's like I'm gonna make them clean and like make them with a sanitizer. And then the moment he's handing me this bag of the stuff, I just like didn't know how to hold it in a decent way. He's already coming all this way with the bag in his hand. So
guys, forgive me. I've got something that's looking a bit urgent. Someone's saying they're in trouble, and I switched my phone off before, so they're messaging me somewhere else to say they need my attention. I'll be right back, okay?
Yes,
okay, but don't change the t-shirt.
Yeah, and please go on mute.
Okay, I'll catch you in a bit. Yeah.
Okay. So
sorry, continue.
So yeah, no problem. So taking this bag from the person who delivered to you, again, taking like what you said and trying to be decent, but at the same time trying to be saying like this touch is like okay for him. Like I didn't know how to handle it, but I felt very emotional and trying to be humble and thankful for him for coming all this way. So this is like a very different experience for me to touch things that people have touched before me. And I do not know their stories. I do not know how hygiene they are. I do not know their behaviors. So it's a very interesting perspective I never saw before. And it always reminded me of this antique store that one lady once said, or I do not remember, it's a movie or I do not remember, but there's this lady that said the antique things, she doesn't like it because people have used it and maybe died years ago, and now I'm using it. So it's strange, like it added a very a very dark, different perspective about touching things. Yeah.
Interesting. With the same logic, sometimes people buy stuff that celebrities have touched, and it's such an amazing thing that they've done that, you know?
Yes. Yeah. We had a school. Yeah, we had once a celebrity came to our school, and after my friend shook hands, she said, "I would never wash my hands in my entire life again. So yeah. So this is like a very interesting thing. The positive thing to leave you with in terms of touch is that I returned back to drawing a project I used to have. I had these two paintings. I started one 4 years ago and I didn't finish them. So I have a lot of unfinished business. And during this quarantine, I used the brushes to touch and the canvas and draw with it. So I have the sound of it, the touch of the canvas and the drawing and the painting. So this was a very positive thing for me to feel. So I have the memory of touching the canvas and the drawing rather than the keyboard working on.
That's
Lovely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I was
You're
gonna
welcome.
just on a less serious note, I'm glad that Matthew, when you started going into the fetish thing of celebrities, and I thought it would come out with the story of the vending machines in Japan with used underwear. But I just, Nahara, when you mentioned the shops, I remember last Saturday, I thought I felt like an idiot because I went to get a coffee. I did my groceries at 6 a.m. because I know that there's no one on a Saturday morning at 6 a.m. And then I was trying to open doors with my knee or my elbows. And I'm thinking, this is, someone is filming. It looks like ridiculous. What's this guy doing this martial arts to get into the stores? And then I thought, I do the self-scanning. I touch things to open doors in fridges. I mean, unless you actually go in and fully sanitize yourself, and even the products, because you don't know who put them there, it doesn't make any sense. So you might as well take some sort of calculated risks and and just have a relatively normal life, of course. But it is a shift in perspectives. But I think on the paintings, because this is not the first time that tonight someone mentioned things that they used to do and then they didn't do for a while or they never thought of doing. I think one of the beautiful things that are happening is that kind of power of showing up. I was listening to a webcast this morning about the power of showing up with people in general, but this is actually power of showing up. You're facing that blank page in your journal, or you're facing that canvas that you left behind. I think it's just a beautiful thing, appreciating the time we have and using it to change or make some sort of impact on what we do.
Lovely.
Yeah, I think Maya, we lost you.
Yeah, I got a bit stuck for a second, but I'm good now. Just on the comment of Matthew, he's been the highlights. Zaha Experience, I think it's all about getting uncomfortable, and connecting with the other will make you uncomfortable. And it's moving outside the confines of what you think is proper conversation or what isn't, or what is the right time to say something. So I guess it's a good thing that we're all feeling this way. And I'm very grateful for him for adding that experience. So when I close my eyes now, after all the stories that you've told me, I can imagine Matthew with 6 loaves of bread, and Emanuele making focaccias, and Nahla drinking her hot drinks, and Asma connecting over recipes with housemates. But there's a couple of feelings that are just common. And for me, it's beautiful to see how everyone's connecting with one another. Everyone is more open. Everyone is diving into the unknown, and outside of their comfort zones. And in general, we just find ourselves like doing more things that we wouldn't have been doing otherwise if everything was open out there and we had our distractions. So I'm very grateful for all of the stories that you all shared. And I wanted to check in with you, and just see how you're feeling right now in this very moment. It could be related to after you've heard these stories, what did you feel? It could be just any feeling you're feeling right now. I'd love to know what is in your heart. We'll start with Nahla. She's my favorite, Nahla. I'm like,
Nahla. She need to do the name tonight. Can't you pick on somebody else?
Emmanuel.
Okay, Asma, if you want.
To be honest, being the, I don't want to give myself credit, but being the curator of this whole thing, Zaha Experience, makes me always anxious during the experiences because I'm always I'm concerned. I want just to make sure that we deliver up on the promise that, you shake what people think. You just enable people to challenge their assumptions about themselves and the other. So I'm always thinking of this, perspective. But I allowed myself tonight, just to enjoy and chill and open up and listen attentively to others. It's fascinating, the significance of just exploring what the other is made of. When she was asking us about our capacity to relate to one of the senses, somebody actually related to the absence of that sense, and it's pretty, others related to the presence of it, or the reinforced presence of such senses, and somebody else would relate to the absence of them, and both perspectives are out there, but it's interesting to see yours and the perspective of the others. Both are valid, both are right, there's no wrong or right, but both are there, and each is curating our own reality, the perspective becomes, or the perception actually curates the reality, because everything you see, everything you acknowledge is because of a certain perception and the mind. So it's been enlightening for me. I feel different now. I feel definitely uplifted.
Awesome. Emanuele?
I'm going to share a little bit more here. To answer the question, because as an Italian, I can open parentheses and then 20 minutes later, you say you still haven't addressed the question. So I feel really connected to you guys. I feel like I've known you for, well, I have known Asma for a while, but I feel this connection, and I'm thinking, why am I feeling it? And I think for me is even more meaningful because I moved to Sweden, coming back from Australia, a little bit in Italy again, and then working for London, and then now in Sweden. So I have to be honest with you, I don't really have, apart from the friends that you talk to that have been there since you were a kid, but there's only a few left really, less than a handful. So my days are filled with, it's either my family or these new people that I met here in the last 2 years, but they're not really meaningful connections. They're talking about, schools and kids and sports and very shallow conversations. And then the rest is work. So you travel, you do things, and then you move, you're in and out basically. So I think showing up with the intention to really listen, and like you mentioned at the beginning, no phones, no distractions, kids downstairs, and thinking I'm not that interesting, and I'm really I want to listen to what the others have to say. I think this has really brought a deep connection, and also I hope that it's something that I'm not used to, and for the reasons that I mentioned. And so I hope that this can actually have some continuation, or at least kickstart something, because you don't know, and you never know what starts something, but having that kind of transformative power to germinate or to develop into something that's more intentionally I go and seek, this kind of connection. Because it's very easy to muffle those sounds, into inner voices and think that the way things are, they're fine. And then, but I'm really realizing that what we did tonight is beautiful. And so credit to you for organizing. And I think for me as well, because it would be very easy to say 5:30 to 7:30, they're the only 2 hours that, the kids come home and then they go to bed. But I thought, I really want to explore this and put myself out there and be touched. So I'm really pleased this connection was created. And thank you for facilitating it beautifully.
And thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all.
I can share now, Maya.
My Wi-Fi is acting up a bit.
Okay, so
yes, please go ahead. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is acting up a bit.
Yeah, it's okay. So I feel now that in the last couple of days I had action, like calls with an action. So you call people to check on them and know they're okay. Call people to do something and they're okay. Call conference calls in business, so on and so forth. And even my calls with my family have been with actions. You cooked that, you did that, you didn't do that, and so on. And especially my brother lives in Australia, so we're thinking like, did you wear the mask while going out? Did you do kaza? So on and so forth. But we didn't have a time to have deep connection like the one we're having now. And our family calls are more into actions rather than into just having quality time. And this even reflects the calls I have with my friends and so on. Even I had a call a couple of days with Zaha. It was like, I wanted to talk with her and then I felt guilty after closing because it was like, with Asma, because it was like, for me, Asma and Zaha is the same. But so it was like very quick, and I discovered that I need to pause, I need to stop, and the double ganger or the double-edged weapon is the social media, although it brings us closer and checking on WhatsApp, but I didn't have a 2-hour or like 2-hour break with quality and deep communication like the one we're having now. So it just like calmed me down, made me more present. And this is what I feel. And my takeaway mainly is I need to open deep more connections rather than being on the go, because all the world, we go on and see how many people are alive, how many people are dead, and like you change to KPIs and numbers the last couple of weeks. So this is what I have to share.
Interesting. Yeah, I think we can move to reflect on the future. I think we lost you, Maya.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yes, sure. I just wanted to add one thing. Sorry.
Okay.
Just real connections don't need Wi-Fi. And I'm loving that we're all opening up, and I hope that's something we can all take away after the experience. And I hope that I can stay in touch with all of you. So one topic that has resonated is the feeling of being stuck. I think some people are very uncomfortable with being at home. It could be being mentally stuck or being physically stuck in a place. And while the future might be uncertain for all of us, and we don't know what could come up, we could have predictions about it. There is one thing that we could, and I mean, I hope I can take my own advice, because at some days I don't. One thing that could help us is imagining a brighter future and imagining a better tomorrow, anticipating and watching the unfolding of the events. And that's why I thought it would be important for us to, towards the end of this experience, to just imagine a life after COVID-19, when fine, okay, economy goes down, economy gets better again, everyone's able to travel again. Suddenly you have your civil freedoms, you're able to go out, you're able to do things the way you were doing them before. What's the one lesson that you would take away, and what's the first place you'd like to go to, for example? Please go ahead and share. I'll let Asma go.
I'll start. I'll start. It's interesting that we've been referring to our experiences of imagining other people touching the stuff that we're buying nowadays, and I always say in Zaha, we always aim to enhance the empathic willingness. We can't walk the journey with each other, but we can at least simulate the imaginative act of stepping into the shoes of the others. So if we continue with this capacity of relating to the other, who touched the product before I bought it, who cultivated the food I'm eating, and it's not because empathy is all about just being kind. It takes courage, and it's about building this trust where you can access the knowledge reservoir within the other. This serves us in curating relevant services and products for our clients, and relating to our partner, and relating to our colleagues in the office, and so on. It's much more than being kind. So hopefully we'll come out of this corona virus challenge having more capacity to relate to the other, and imagine where they're coming from in life mentally, not only physically. The first place I'd like to go to, I love nature. I grew up in a village, so definitely hiking in the mountains. Camping outdoor, yeah.
Nice.
Nice. Matthew, what about you? What's one lesson you'll take away post-COVID-19, and what's the first place you'd like to go to? Welcome back, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. I'd like to go to the Philippines.
Is the lady based there? Is the new lady based there?
Yeah. But what's the lessons? I like my house more than I thought.
It's okay if you don't know it now.
No, I don't know. I think I like my house more than I thought. I think there's going to be lots of things like that we can do work on, things like this, that hopefully the UAE will allow video calls, stuff like that. It's made me question whether or not I think I have enough, like the correct. Have I been before? My logic was bacteria is good. You got to get immune to stuff, and now all of a sudden I've gone the other way. I want to go back to not giving a shit about germs. I don't know where the balance lies. I guess the main lesson is making sure that society appreciates the correct people in society that have greater societal value in looking after others, rather than just those who make money for themselves and for their companies. I want to make sure that after this, that we don't see people's value based on how much they make for themselves and their company, but instead who provides the greatest underlying support for communities. And I think that's been overlooked and undervalued. And I think that after this, we'll probably see a greater likelihood for people on those front lines to get salary increases, to be appreciated, to be better protected by certain things. And I think that was well overdue.
Interesting.
Awesome. And Emanuele?
Yes. One of the reflections that I've gone through is I hear a lot of people at work, clients, newspapers, where the narrative is once we go back to normal and once the economy will pick up again. And if there is one thing that I really hope that we don't go back to is the usual business as usual like it was before, because now we're back and everybody can fly again like idiots and have a footprint on the planet, which is 2.5 what the planets can take. And like Matthew mentioned, profit before people type of companies. And that kind of, brought, if I'm honest with myself, a lot of thinking about, well, what am I doing in the company I'm working with? And Hasma has been there and has asked herself the question and moved on. So I think for me, as someone who wants to make an impact, and impact in the new world for me will be really being more intentional about where you allocate your energy, having more purpose, channeling the energy in the right places. And so can I keep doing it where I'm doing it? And unless I find corners of in my organization where I can have an impact, I really started to think, I really should move on. So it's been quite a wake-up call, quite frankly. So I think overall, big lesson for me is being more intentional of, things that you're doing, and don't revert to previous habits, including a lot of those meetings where, the workshop we had today, just a classic example. I would have flown to Stockholm yesterday and showed up today for this meeting, and it was actually handled in less time, more effectively via Zoom. And so why inflicting pain to the planet when, you can actually be more effective otherwise? It's just rethinking our way of doing things, more intentional and better purpose, I guess, for me. But I'm also, you look back at the history, and I don't know how many of you are optimistic about the humans learning any lessons in the long run, or having a long-term view. So that's what, of course, we have to be the ones bringing the change, but I think the resistance will be out there.
In Arabic, the word human.
Yeah.
Sorry, my connection's acting up. I was gonna say in Arabic, the word human is insan, which is taken from forgetful.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yes, because this is our nature.
I'll try to remember that.
That's a pun.
I got to live with me. It's terrible.
Do we still have Maya?
Yes, and Nahla.
Okay.
I'll let Nahla go first.
So as a reflection on the COVID for the future, I hear the song Heal the World for Michael Jackson every day. And I feel it's a gift for the next generation, because the current generation, the children, were so focused on influencers, and I know sports are important, but like football players, and they know nothing about engineering, doctors, germs, everything like that. So I feel like there's this gift that is given for the next generation to know a lot of areas of experiences that they should work on, and not just like being on social media. And this is a gift for the future and for us. And I read this quote that, who are we to think that we're gonna end the earth or hurt Mother Nature? Mother Nature is there, and if we did anything wrong with it, she's gonna come and teach us a lesson. And I believe this is what's happening now. And I'm happy that people who are already conscious and aware enough, I believe they would pass this phase, not living in denial, because it's an awakening phase for us and for humanity as well. And this is like how I see the future. people who passed this are more awakened people, more present, and the next of generations would be like more corrected and healed than the needy and the demanding life we're in now. What else should I say?
That's a beautiful vision.
Yeah.
And where would you go after quarantine? The first place you want to go to?
I do not have a certain place, but I want to travel alone. So this could be a very long 8-hour ride to this area. I never been to Dahab in Egypt. I never went there. It's a bohemian area where you can go snorkeling, see a lot of the Blue Hole, and I've always wanted to go there but didn't find the right tribes. So maybe I'll take my car, drive 8 hours and go there alone, which would be a very big thing because, yani, I hope this happens. If not, I'm going to take a plane somewhere.
You'll be alone but not lonely.
Yes! And after this Zaha experience, actually, when you asked this, I didn't have it set in my mind. But when I answered this first question, I knew this is something I want to do. It was just like in the back of my mind, but I didn't think it's through that deep. But okay.
Lovely.
Thank you.
For me, one thing I've already started to take away from this is that this current culture and world that we live in is always glorifying individualistic success, knowing yourself, loving yourself, appreciating yourself, that we have become so removed from the idea of like community and just tribes. You know, before we were all in tribes and we sat down and we told stories to each other and we connected and it was a way of life. So I'm realizing more and more how I might have been alone, but I'm not lonely, but also that I want to actively be around people and I want to actively have a support system. And that's not something that you can just sit and say, I don't have this, because like 50% of it is you reaching out. Like there's a Rumi poem where he says like, open your hand if you want to be held. And I think when it comes to aloneness and loneliness, a big part of it is you being willing to connect with other people. And that's something I do want to take away with me. I have already started doing it now and I want to keep it with me post COVID-19. And the first place I'm going to go to is the beach. Not because I'm getting really pale, that's one reason, but because I just love it and I just want to like put my feet in the sand and like collect shells and let the sun just touch my skin and feel at peace. I'm really looking forward to that. The beach is one of my favorite places and it's currently closed down. So yeah, and I think that concludes our experience.
Wow. It's fascinating, to be honest. I mean, the way I feel right now definitely is completely different than the state of mind I started with. And this is a true depiction of how I project you and how you project to me. It's just as Emmanuel said, that trust and courage might be the determining factors of initiating such intentional interaction. And yeah, thank you so much. I mean, it has taken courage for us to show up today and to take time out of our families. So thank you so much for showing up today, for opening up.
Thank you.
For bringing definitely more consciousness to me. I'm sure about you guys. And definitely we'll continue with the series of the experiences. We'll have different themes because the idea is just to capture and acknowledge the narratives that are going on inside our heads for now. This would help us to understand how we'll be evolving out of this experience. I mean, the coronavirus experience. So thank you so much. I'll be sending you tomorrow like a survey just to get your feedback, help us to curate more experiences that are relevant to you. And thank you so much for your participation and for showing up. I'm so beyond grateful for all of you. Thank you. Shukran.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Thank you.
I
Thank
will
you.
send the
Thank you.
recipes and the pictures, huh?
Yeah, I'm sure
Please
that
do.
Zaha,
Stay in touch.
email box.
Yes.
Recipe.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Later.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye. Ciao. Bye.